thank everybody again for coming tonight. We're going to get started pretty soon here, get the program moving.
I'll give you a hug. total success. So, yeah, the time is hard.
Yeah, like I said, I got the
I met the Boarding sisters when they were here. Yeah. Aaron and Fitz, his brothers, I went to school with Aaron. I went to San Jose, college, and then that draft was it wasn't good. Ever since then. What you think? The knees. And your mom and daddy were
All right. Uhuru. I'm going to say that again. Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. You're in for a life-changing experience. We're going to go ahead and start out with the African Pledge of Resistance. And the way we're going to do this is a call and response. So I'll do the first part, and then y'all do the second part. Can y'all see the letters? In the back, Tennessee, can you see the letters? Okay, can y'all see? All right, perfect. I'm taking the Pledge of African Resistance. All right, so we're gonna do a call and response. So I'm gonna say the first line, and then you guys repeat after me, and then I'll do the second one, and you guys repeat. We'll go through the Pledge of Resistance that way. I am taking the Pledge of African Resistance. I am standing with the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. In the struggle for social justice, peace, and reparations, to the African community. I am taking the Pledge of African Resistance. I may not always be able to be on the front line, but I am making my contribution. I am taking the Pledge of African Resistance. With my contribution, I am saying not one more black life will be taken by the police. I am taking the Pledge of African Resistance. With my contribution, I am saying that the African community must control the schools in which our children learn. I am taking the pledge of African resistance. With my contribution, I declare that the imperialist governments of North America and Europe owe my people reparations for 500 years of slavery and colonialism. I am taking the pledge of African resistance. With my contribution, I am standing with my African brothers and sisters around the world in onward struggle for bread, peace, and black power. I am taking the pledge of African resistance. I am taking the future of my children. I am taking the future of my community. I am taking the future of my African nation in my own hands. I am taking the pledge of African resistance. I am fighting for independence. In my lifetime, I am taking the pledge of African resistance. Uhuru. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys an overview of what's gonna happen tonight, and then after that, we're gonna have a couple of people from organizations that are linked up with Impedum, that are in fraternal political relationships with the Uhuru movement, give solidarity statements. Then after the solidarity statements, we have underground MC from San Diego that goes by the name of Pipsy Herrera. And it's important that out here we bring culture into our movement and into the work that we do, because the people are always going to celebrate culture. People are always going to have a cultural perspective, and what our goal is to bring forward revolutionary culture, and culture that is going to uplift our consciousness and bring us to a higher state of political awareness. So we're honored to have Pipsy Herrera come here and bless the mic. And after Pip gets on the mic, we're going to have the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess, speak. And after Penny Hess, then we'll have a presentation by the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, the leader of the Uhuru movement, Chairman Omali, speak. And we'll have question and answer as well after we do a couple of appeals, basically for membership, registration, fundraising, things like that. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here. It's important the work that we're doing in San Diego as African people, because just like anywhere else in the world, the African community is under colonial domination. Right now, as we speak, we don't have control of our own lives. Anytime there's a police force, there's a military force, there's prison industrial complex, there's a whole assault on our psychology by the media. And there's so many different ways that this imperialist system, this colonial system, keeps us under their control. And so in San Diego, just like in Detroit, just like in Toronto, just like in Sierra Leone, Jamaica, just like in South Africa, all over the world, in Brazil, in Chile, all over the world, just like all over the place in San Diego, we have to fight for our liberation, because nobody's going to give it to us. And that's what we're here for. My name is Josh Sun. I'm the president of Impedum San Diego, the local organization that organizes under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And in San Diego, if you're a part of Impedum, can you do me a favor and raise your hand or stand up? Yeah, give these comrades a hand. We have forces in San Diego. There are people organizing for African liberation under the revolutionary leadership of the African working class in San Diego. So, at the end of this event, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to be a part of the organization. And it's important that as African people, we join this movement, and it's going to be made clearer and clearer as the night goes on. And basically, right now what I want to do is talk about basically there's organizations here in San Diego that realistically are instrumental in the African community receiving the political line of Chairman Omali. For decades, there was organizations that were linked fraternally with the African People's Socialist Party. And these organizations, in a lot of ways, brought that political consciousness to the African community. And if anybody doesn't know, let's make this clear. Right now, we're standing in Mexico. Does everybody understand that? We are standing in Mexico. The only reason why this isn't called Mexico is because the United States military took over this land and put a big old line all the way from California to Texas and told the people who rightfully had control of this land, who had control of the resources, who were controlling what was going on all over this land, this U.S. government took the power out of their hands. And the whole time, there have been Mexican revolutionaries. The whole time there has been a force of Mexican people in this land, in San Diego, in California, all over Aztlan that have been fighting to take this land back. And as African people colonized just the same way the Mexican people were colonized, we stand in solidarity with them in this land. We're very clear about that. We're fighting for Africa. We're fighting for Ethiopia, for Ghana, South Africa, Tanzania, all over the place. We're fighting to break all those borders down and have complete control of those resources. That's what we're fighting for. So today, we want to bring a couple of comrades, compañeros up to express that relationship that I just told you about. So if we could have the representative from Unión del Barrio, Benjamin Prado, come up and say a few words in solidarity.
Thank you, compañeras and compañeros. First of all, I want to thank the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, the African People's Socialist Party, for your presence and organizing this event tonight. This event tonight really represents the essence of what our struggle is about. It's about taking over our resources, having control over our lives. And to us, it constitutes an honor to be here and share this stage with Comrade Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the members of the African People's Socialist Party, because we've learned tremendously. In order to understand really what the message is, we want to provide you a little bit of context of who Unión del Barrio is. Unión del Barrio was born from the Chicano power movement of the 1960s and 1970s. In fact, one of its founders, Ernesto Bustillos, who is no longer with us, was the comrade who made that link between the African People's Socialist Party and Unión del Barrio. Unión del Barrio, when it was founded on the principle that our struggle has to be for our land, that we must have control over our resources as a people, that the invaders, the real invaders, right now they call us illegal aliens, but the real invaders, the Europeans that came and imposed a social, political, and economic order that stripped us from our ability to reproduce our real world, in an ability to be able to feed our children, to put a roof over our head, to have control over our labor, stripped us from that ability because it took our land. And that our fundamental struggle as a people to reclaim our humanity, to reclaim our dignity, is to reclaim what is rightfully ours. The land that we stand on, what rightfully was laid out by Brother Jason, is that this land is stolen Mexican land. And that our fundamental role as a Mexican people must be to not only reclaim our land, but reclaim our labor. Because the character of our communities, even during the height of Chicano power movement, we knew that we're workers, that we produce the real world, that we produce the chairs that we're sitting on, the stage that I'm on, this microphone, that our labor produces and creates wealth, that we produce because we're workers, we're able to extract the natural resources that's called food from the fields and be able to provide our families with our children with food. That we're able to build buildings, that we're able to build roads, and that we are able also to liberate ourselves. And that is the fundamental question that the Chicano movement showed us. That as workers, we can organize ourselves. And organizations came out of the Chicano movement, Unión del Barrio being one of them. And we can see organization all around us. Many times, and what has been already summed up correctly is that the Chicano movement was defeated militarily and politically by the U.S. government. Our leaders were assassinated. Our leaders were incarcerated. Our leaders were slandered. And what they put in front of us was the option of a neo-colonial face in power to be able to say that we can no longer struggle for our land. And Unión del Barrio disagreed. And we said, no, our struggle must be and must continue to be to have control over our land, over our resources, and over our labor. And it was in 1986 that we were able to find the expression of the organized African working class in the African People's Socialist Party. And it is because of this solidarity, this alliance. I don't want to say fraternal relationship, I want to say alliance, because that's what it is. This alliance with the African People's Socialist Party provided us with tremendous amounts of historical knowledge, wealth of science, to guide us also into what is a real revolutionary movement to reclaim our lands and resources. And that this historical alliance has brought about the creation of things such as La Verdad publications, our ability to ideologically challenge and speak for ourselves and challenge the ideas that, of those that oppress us. That the ideas that are promoted in society through the media, through television, through education even, are the ideas that we must wage today in our barrios, in our communities, and everywhere we find ourselves, including the prisons. And that is why through this historic alliance we have been able to build many different projects. One of them that I want to highlight today is the Chicano Mexicano Prison Project. That today many compas may not be here today because right now they are still struggling right now in the meeting to try to build the necessary organization within the prison system, because we understand that this colonial power has been able to incarcerate many of our people behind bars. And it does it because it fears our numbers and it fears our unity. And it fears our unity, and we see it because the divisions that are found amongst African people and Mexicans many times derive out of that situation where they put us in these things called concentration camps, called prisons. And it is those types of projects that we've been able to build a long-lasting alliance that we believe, and that one day we believe we will need to build one organization. Right now, we are two different organizations, but we understand that the essence of our unity is this issue of organization. That we cannot call ourselves revolutionary, we cannot call ourselves people in the struggle if we are not organized. The highest expression of unity is organization. And it is those types of principles and ideas that have been able to build this historic alliance between the African community and the Mexican community. And we're honored to be here tonight, to be able to participate in a political discussion discussion, an ideological discussion that will forge the path forward for our liberation, because we understand that we have one enemy: capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism. And our struggle is fundamentally against that economic system that keeps us divided as workers, that keeps us in a condition of poverty, and that we do have a common vision to build a society where there are no rich and no poor, no oppressor, no oppressed, no exploited and no exploiter. And it is that alliance that we are proud to be a part of in this historical period. Because as we Unión del Barrio come out of our 5th Congress with a strategic plan to build dual and contending power, to build an organization that is able to challenge and create power on our own terms, an organization that is able to build and create community self-defense, and to join the rest of Latin America in a socialist revolutionary movement that has already begun through the historic example of revolutionary Cuba, that is already taken root in revolutionary Venezuela, and that is today spreading throughout the continent, that is the future that we believe we need to build and be a part of. We have for many years already discarded Washington, D.C. and Sacramento as anything that has anything to offer us. We are not in alliance with Washington or Sacramento. We are in alliance with the revolutionary peoples, with the peoples, the indigenous peoples, the African peoples, the women, the workers of all of Latin America, to build a unified, revolutionary, socialist, and indigenous Nuestra America. And it is within that context of coming out of our 5th Congress that we look forward to joining the African People's Socialist Party in their historic 6th Congress to build that necessary unity, organization, and discipline that will move us forward in this struggle together. Hasta la victoria siempre, unidos venceremos. Uhuru.
Uhuru. All right, thank you very much, Benjamin Prado. I want to actually, it's perfect time to talk about something that's extremely serious that's happening in our community right now. And this comrade's been very, very instrumental in the work around this. I want to say on October 11th, we had one of our comrades, a lot of people in the community know this comrade, Kwame. Kwame's been in San Diego organizing since the 80s, let's just put it like that. He's brought a lot of people into the organization in PDM. He's maintained that alliance with Unión del Barrio, and he's always been around just continually challenging capitalism, challenging colonialism. Kwame's just an amazing frontline warrior. And he actually was attacked by a well-known agitator, somewhat of a neo-Nazi type person down near San Isidro. And this guy, basically, he bumped into Kwame, kicked him, they got into a fight. Kwame ended up getting the best of him. Well, he ended up beating the dude up. The dude got beat up. But that's a pattern. Seriously, the reason I said it, because it's a pattern. You got some European person, a North American white nationalist that thinks that they know they got the state behind them. They know that they got the army, the police, the government, the judicial system. So in San Diego, like a lot of places, you got regular citizens that just try to beat up Africans, beat up Mexicans, and when they get beat up, they go to the hospital. And guess who's going to jail? Us. Every single time. And this is exactly what happened to Kwame. He got locked up in Central Jail right here downtown. He actually didn't receive medical attention until put a campaign together. We had people all over the world calling in to Central Jail to demand Kwame's freedom and demand that he get medical attention. He finally received medical attention, but basically they're trying to charge him with assault, and they're trying to give him a felony. And we're not letting it happen. We're not going to just lay down and let this comrade get assaulted by somebody who continues to agitate the movement. He gets escorted to the hospital by the police while our comrade is in jail. We're not letting it happen. Anybody who's available Sunday at 1:30, we're going to meet at Malcolm X Library. We're putting together a Free Kwame Defense Committee. We went to his first arraignment. We have lawyers, we have private investigators that we're looking at working with, but we need to organize this into a Free Kwame Defense Committee. So please make it Sunday at the Malcolm X Library, and every Sunday after that until we get Kwame out of jail. Now, the next compañero that I want to bring to this stage, and so we can speak on the alliance that we have with his organization, is a comrade who's basically representing two different organizations right now. Impedum is a part of the Save Our Barrios Coalition, which is an organization of several organizations in the community that are aligned to take back control of the community. Now, we have a project right now where we're working to take over an abandoned building on 30th Street over near Memorial Park. It's been abandoned for 6 years. And so the Save Our Barrios Coalition has got together. We've had events at the building, events at Logan Heights Library. We've raised the awareness of the community. And we're doing a lot of work to get this building. And so just stay tuned in. If all you guys signed in, we'll be emailing you information. But the work that we're doing is real powerful in the community. And this compañero, that's how Impedum and the Brown Berets are working together right now. But I want to bring David Rico to the stage. David Rico is part of the Brown Berets, and he's been instrumental in the community as well. And these are people that are your leaders, that are our leaders, that are our brothers and sisters. So they're not here just to tell you something. They're here to organize. They're here for us to get involved in. So you guys know that there are people in San Diego that are making a real difference in overthrowing this system and building up something that we can control. So, talk to these compañeros, talk to these comrades, and let them know that you want to get involved in a way that's going to actually change something. Because there's 1,000 other people out there that are doing things that are just having us running in circles. And a lot of those things that are having us running in circles, we think we're doing something, but they were set up for us to run in circles. And so that's why we're having this event. That's why Chairman Omali flew all the way out here to speak to us tonight. So I want to bring David Rico to the stage, and let's go ahead and give David Rico a round of applause.
I brought a couple of friends with me. It's not, my name's David Rico, I'm the Brown Berets de Aslan. I want to say real quick though, we're the Brown Berets de Aslan. Remember that Aslan part? The Aslan part is very, very important to us. There's other groups out there with Brown Berets, but there's only one Brown Beret de Aslan. And this is some of us here. These brothers here I want to talk a little bit about these brothers here. They're not really here to protect me necessarily. They do that because We love each other. We protect each other. But they're here as a symbol. You know, we're not afraid of being attacked by anybody here. That's not why they're standing here. They're standing here to show, they're in uniform, to show, like it was talked a little bit a while ago about organization. Well, we kind of represent an organization where we symbolize an army. Because you see, our land's not going to be given to us. So we have to represent and prepare to take it. And this is why I hate uniforms. I wear a uniform too, it's probably underneath this coat, but it's to symbolize that we have to get organized like an army, because they have armies that suppress us. They have armies, they have badges, they got guns, and they do a lot of harm to our community. The African people, Chicano people, Chicano-Mexicano people suffer from attacks, and we just heard some of it now, from the cops, the MIRA, the armies, constantly. And there's no stop to it. Well, we have to put a stop to it. They kill it. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. They'll kill you. They'll drag you out of the car, put a bullet in your head. They've done it already a lot of times. The Brown Berets is an interesting group because we come straight out of our barrios. We don't come out of the colleges. There's nothing wrong with the colleges. I'm not putting down people who get to college if we can get there. But we represent people that go to prison. We represent people that are harassed by the cops. We're not angels either. Some of us might be considered by the society as felons, people that are not important, people that shouldn't be listened to. That's where we organize at. We organize in the barrios to the people, the dropouts, people who are always in trouble with the cops, because they might not know certain education or even historical things, but sometimes they don't need to because they feel it. They feel it every day when they see their families being harassed, families being thrown out of their houses, families being picked up by the MIRA, cops stopping you in the street because you have to be doing something wrong. Hell, you're Mexican, aren't you? These are the people that Brown Berets and Aslan go to organize. The people who they say cannot be organized, are too wild, too crazy. Well, that wildness and craziness, we look at it as being warriors. Warriors with the heart and the soul that we're going to need to get back Aslan. Solidarity with the African people has to happen because they live in the same barrios that we live in. They go under the same suffering every day. In fact, right now, they were having some people down the barrios before I came up here. It's just constant. So the Brown Berets Aslan is in solidarity with the African people because we live together in the same barrios. We're poor, and we suffer the same injustices that the African people do. A lot of times the African people think it's our fault. Sometimes we think it's their fault. That's a trick. Because the Brown Berets knows whose fault it is. And those are the enemies that we're organizing against to fight. And we're in solidarity. We came here to listen to a man who has a lot of experience and is involved in the struggle. We have a great deal of respect for. Because, you know, there's a lot of people that make speeches, but speeches without action is not worth that much. This is not that kind of man. And that's why one of the reasons we're here in solidarity with the chairman Omali and the African community and the African people, no matter where they're at. We asked him to help us in our struggle, and we'll help them in their struggle in order to get hold of our land so we actually could live in peace. You know, this fucking gringo doesn't let us live in peace even when we want. So we have to fight back. No, I don't want to, I'm speaking for the Brown Berets, but I'm also speaking for Save Our Barrios, that we're in that coalition, Raise of Islam. And the organizations that are there feel much the same way I feel the word that I'm saying today. We're involved in many different projects. The Raise of Islam right now is involved in brutality on our people by the Migra and the police. We just had a march just recently. Down the street, we have a comprehensive plan that we want to put into action. Hope you can hear about it more later on. You could ask us later on after I say these few words. I'm really anxious to hear the chairman also. That's why we came here. But I'm trying to represent two groups. Save Our Barrios is involved in the struggle, and the Raise of Islam is with them, and all the people that are, all the organizations that are in that coalition to secure our lands and to get as much power and get our land back and in our control as possible. It's very difficult to do, but you know, we're thankful. We don't give up. I was going to say we don't get up easily. We don't give up. And so I could speak for all the organizations that Save Our Barrios. We're in complete solidarity. And I can speak for the Brown Berets Islam. Remember, it's Brown Berets Islam. Now, Islam is real important. We're in complete solidarity, and that's what we came to. They asked us to do. Monica Bernal was supposed to give this talk. She wasn't able to do that, and I wish she would, because I like to listen to her too. And she can't be replaced. And so I was asked to do this, and it was an honor for me to do that. I don't want to go on and on, but. All I want to say, we're in complete solidarity. I want to hear what the chairman has to say. I always want to do that. And my friend Ernesto Bustillos, I know he's looking down at me saying, you better go up there, man, because that's something I know he would be proud to see. In addition to that, before I leave, his sons are Brown Berets Islam members. And he would have been very proud to see that. He knew about some of them already, but then we got some new sons too. You know, with that, I'm gonna have a grito. Que viva the African people. Que viva! Que viva the African people! Que viva the African people! Que viva the African people! Que viva la raza! Adelante!
All right, we want to thank David Rico and show him some appreciation by giving him another round of applause. And it's definitely an honor to have allies such as Brown Berets and Unión del Barrio, because we know that this struggle, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be made clear, and it should be made clear that we're winning this battle right now. A lot of people think that sometimes, especially in San Diego, we look around, we don't see a lot of African people, maybe you don't see a lot of work being done in the community, but we're a part of an international struggle. It's international, it's worldwide, and we're on the winning side. We're with the masses, the working class people, and we're taking power back into our hands. So don't anybody ever get discouraged and think that we're not going to win this war. Don't give up, don't stop fighting, because we are on the winning side, and it's important to know that. Right now, we're going to bring some African culture in the mix. We're going to bring an MC that's sending shockwaves throughout the community right now. It's definitely an honor to have this young brother come and bless the mic. His music will speak for itself. Let me get everybody to give a round of applause to Piff C. Herrera.
Peace, peace, peace. He said Piff C. Herrera. The C's for California. Piff is P-I-F. It's an acronym. Preserve, for, fire. I am just in the middle of it, so it's good to be amongst the people. This is the art of MC via the culture of hip-hop. You know, just a demonstration of some real foundational hip-hop. Sure. How you guys feeling? You guys listen to hip-hop music? Somewhat? You don't gotta get up and dance or nothing, just, listen. Close your eyes if you want to. It's from a project called State Quake. We know what the state is and we know what a quake does, so, hope you enjoy. They're getting the computer ready. Can everybody hear me clear? Words? I'll do my best not to muffle the mic and pronunciate all of my words. We good to go? Oh, you don't gotta do all that. Oh yeah, no, I will not be dancing tonight. No worries, no Charleston going on. Check. Gonna have the beat come up just a tad. Little balance is good. Y'all can still hear me? You can still hear my words? Check. 2. Listen. Okay, once upon a time when the crime wasn't usual. Crime was white collar dollars under cuticles. Red and blue hairs, purple, rare buzz, beautiful. The plot bubbles, spotted trouble with the who is who. Masquerade bars, have a ball when we threw a few. Acid shot back, perhaps the only black dudes. Crack rock, baby, from the 80s with an attitude. Part of the melanin, the cooler these latitudes. Chakra, yeah, baby, that's the rule. Pass the truth, the weekend is that's the crew. Check, two, yeah that, see we back with the most fluid. Live and direct is the resurrected issue been using. Paraphrase Lucifer, the most elusive. Get exclusive amenities, but P just do it. Now that was so Nike, I'm like a Clyde Puma. Fly forever, so never mind the blind consumer. Can't buy into a rhyme revolution when it's time lies never move nothing but they two-lips. And bullshit walks in green now, I thought you knew this. Rest in peace to Big Mike, only the true will survive. The present mind control sliding in the music. That's why I slip poems like the bodies dangle from the poems ain't clueless. Cause it's so aimed to maintain the soul blameless. Stupid. Two, it's just a demonstration. No whistles, no bells, no shimmer. Just that inner glow, you just let it ride, just let it ride. Y'all still with me? Can you hear? Say yeah real quick, yeah! Yeah! Two, it's all hip hop. That endurance music, that day to day, state to state, elevation. Peace, King. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 9. Yeah, now this is the sound of the Almighty, pulling an all-nighter. Call lightning from the sky, ignite the bull rider. Pull a drag, blow the towers out the open sky, then pulverize hope inside the minds of those aspiring. Dope, definitive, initiative, and quenching fire. I burn. Why did you lying to earn? If you ain't discern the movement, this firm is. I tried to warn you. Counsel left the hunter, externalize the blunder. Those rise and go sublime, why they going dumber? Why pose questions when Molotovs get thrown in? It ain't nowhere to land. If it ain't land, you own it. And oh, collision across a new sound surrounding the globe. You ain't know about that rollout with no pout. Shit, where heads roll, the Dead Sea scrolls and down that you screw. The screws being led by the former powers in the form of a swing compass destroying ours. Time's a terrible thing to hate. Don't hate the cowards, hate the lies that impart fear. You feel me? 2, 3, 4. Can y'all hear me? Peace. Just a day in the life. It's the day in the life. Hey, you ever seen dream deferred? Things seem to blur. No green, no scheme to work. Can't sleep, keep thinking of her. And she twerking with him. All alone with your pen in this earth. You could be pissed for a minute to hurt. Then massaging the mind with all the time you put in this work. And then the laughter and shoot up Kurt. Cause it's the past like gauze in the court. Yeah, for sure. Clutch. You in touch with a force. Act accordingly. This rap is more to me. You know, repeat the mantra. We just moving from one style to the next. So hip hop, one style to the next. As long as you get the message. Like I said before, this is just a demonstration. Bless up for the words. Yeah. Doper than most appropriate. Fresh coats of Betty Doper than the opiates. Jones cream soda dirty in my doty stick. THC, TNC, tell our homies rich. Wait, if I say it, it's spirit burst, it meant to last forever. So whoever can hear the word, clear it out, kinda like a K when you knit a turf. But here I'm talking about slave mentality, fears, words, paralyzes, parables, the living verse. Never mind them. Hey, I think it's the birds that be gassing on the first go. The moon is in Virgo reaction. Details, yeah, we can hash them. You know, said you can see the cool hurt this magic. It's tragic how the ball run over it. Mode of operation be that don't stop. Suckers know that funk pop. I'm so California calculated every step, don't chop. Proximity be on lock, meaning I'm big cat running in alley dark. That means you get cut fronting, it's a metaphor. Metamorph like Pete Orchard, let them roar. Killer instinct, dead or more. Fatality, this rap shit without a flaw. Never no more. Suppress self for the underwhelm. Swore to the underbelly, let it pour. What started with an idea led to tour. Network to my network, forget a whore. What's the industry up in the streets where it's war? You vote, my few quotes forever law. You boast, yeah, subsurface, nuclear. The new leaders, you see it, yeah, bless the more. Paralyzed, parables, a living verse. Verified, never mind that I hear them chirp. I figure it's the birds that be gassing up the first go. The moon is in Virgo reaction. Details, yeah, we can hash it. You know, Cedric and Cedar, who heard this magic? It's tragic how the far run over it. Mode of operation be that don't stop, stop. 2, I'm gonna drink some water if that's okay. Power to the people. For sure, stop for the quotes from a coup de grace. Kicking the door at a concert block and using cons to gag the honcho, go underground, see what to launch. Pronto, hardcore. Forgot bros, been bloods since Vietnam, gutted trenches and hoes. Then they hit us with that heroin board. Shit, that era was experimented, clearly destroyed. Half our parents had they know that we was coming employed. Wait, something made me sense, baby, shuffle them coins. Hey, every day I'm hustling like what's an employer? 50 got dry, though I know where I'm going. So I'll rise to the chrome on the dangerous is gone. Knowing all along, not a moment for glory. Carry on, this is Perry Mine, police state of California. Summertime shine, yeah, we on, but never mind it. Who put the power to find it? How you define it? What's divine? So I die when I'm writing. What you witnessing is miracle and lyrical timing. I was formed in a Moore's womb, assuming assignment. I was born with the block, so I spent the moon immersed in the tide and rankly. Like years removed, forcing to bite me, they clone. Foresight before the ball flight. In black space, baby, for light. You know, it's that soul power. Hey, I'm talking soul power. Inner man, entertainment. So 1, 2. Yeah, speak was spoken to. Only debate with my equals, so PB so untrue. The leaders of the new school show improve. No proof on the coup, so the scope of doom. Until the self-occurring breaks the body, so it's loose. Yeah, vultures, they learn hard, so dogs guard. Pay service, awake service, a murder squad. It all calculated. Amalgamation. How you made it if you're not a rent, always late. Generational curse breaker, my verse escape. Every word's just escaping you off for the pace. I J-Blame P. Morgan, they ignore outside the teeth for the pace. Play your position when the huddle break. Game open in the name written in the book of life in lowercase. You know I'm talking that soul power. That soul power. And we're our as above, so below. I'm talking soul power. To the next one. How y'all feeling? This is hip hop. Swift demonstration. We running through style.
Lesson 6. 32-bar chorus form, broken down.
Jog my memory real quick. Listen. The narrative. Alright, courtside, chillin' with kettle corn, 45 seconds to cork slide, horsefly. More problems to settle out of court, right? Multiply mine, that's more goals to fortify. Immortalized by a real, not a automark, not the time. Automatic black magic, nah, it's all divine. Raw alliteration, war rhyme. Want your mind like the Warren Commission. I'm spitting shellfish toxin out of carbine. Out the capstone, gals are all seeing eye. Plots from out beyond out of time. I know the pioneers out there, my crown through the diner sign. Listen, into the ages, I send pages packing. International piff, the melanin is active. Tell a friend not to sit and spare for the ratchet. Ain't here for reaction. Hear me? Sheer impacted. clear as a vision, adherent to the passion. To my last one, I'm gonna get out of here. I just want to display for you that hip hop can do many amazing things. And this is just one of them.
I ain't never seen fire shooting up so high. Are you listening, people, to what I'm saying?
What I'm talking about is murder in the capital, tactical warfare, technically homeland, original warhead, subliminal criminals, no mentions I won't care. You twit, too witty for the simple, they lost swear. Bear hugging baby mom, touching my palm flare. Homie, you can't prevent the fire that's spawn here. Burn a whole life up, the circle think I'm square. Nah, tetrahedron, take a make a believer. Well, stretch him and leave him. No, I put the G in Komodo, dragon, P lethal, it's bit, no one can see him here. California night, California cruise, PCH, diesel age, California dreaming, on purpose. I wrote like Stevie, yeah, envision the vivid spirit when I speak. I break it down easy, say what it is and it happens. A shot in the dark to kill the thief, spark the pop, we all like our RFIDs, no question. The verses that bless my enemies, direction, rugged and raw, wreck, believe people catch them. Saying behind me, that's why I lead, hit the exit. You can't respect my OG, perplex them, spinning their head like ODs. The exorcist cast the fake from the freshest yet. No depth, no need for degree, enlightened, tight height in the beat. No hype though, I might though fly the baseline full sing. See wolves over the eyes, wolf scheme realized in a generation. God's the dream, but sing. It's too much though. It's a rap, give it up. You feel me? It's too much though. Rap is out of control. Yeah, it's too much though. It's a rap, give it up. It's too much though. Rap is out of control. Rap is out of control. What you just witnessed is hip hop. The art of MC. I'll leave you in peace. Peace. Yes. Give it up again for Pimp C. Herrera, California.
Get fresh with us.
Yeah, it's important to keep revolutionary culture in the movement, because sometimes when you're sitting at the meeting, or you're sitting at the house planning for the meeting, and you want to hear something, you don't want to turn on no weird news station or turn on the radio. So we got revolutionary culture. We have actual music that speaks to our interests. So once again, give it up for Pimp C. Herrera. All right, now I want y'all to give a San Diego, California, warm, revolutionary welcome to a woman who's been on the front line of the struggle for decades, for a long time, and who's stood in principled solidarity with African people and really has set the stage for what it means for a person that has European ancestry, a North American, a white person, to be involved in revolutionary struggle. And has set the tone. Wendy, are there books? Are there Overturn the Culture? Okay, there's a book that she wrote that's over here. And I do suggest that you guys get it, because I know that I won't be able to express how important Penny Hess is to the struggle. So I'm gonna go ahead and let her words speak for themselves. But everybody give a San Diego, California revolutionary welcome to Penny Hess. All the way out here from St. Petersburg, Florida, to speak to y'all. Uhuru.
The And I also want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, under whose leadership I have had the honor of working for, as Jason said, many decades now. And to know that this revolutionary struggle is so powerful and so strong here in San Diego, as always, it is very humbling to be here. And I want to say that the African People's Solidarity Committee, of which I am the chair, is an organization of white people that was formed by and is led by the African People's Socialist Party, led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And the work of the African People's Solidarity Committee is to go into the white community, to organize other white people just like ourselves, to take a principled stand in solidarity with the liberation of African people, with the liberation of indigenous people and oppressed peoples around the world, and recognize that this land, all of this land, belongs to the indigenous people, that no white person has a right to this land, that this land has been stolen for the benefit of the white population, and that we live in a country and a system of capitalism that is built on the enslavement of African people. And this is very critical because we're living in a time, as the chairman tells us, of great crisis in the world, when all around the world people are struggling. They're kicking the ass of the United States and imperialism. They're saying, you're not taking our resources anymore. We're going to feed our children. We see, we have the internet now. We see what you have stolen from us. We see how your people live at the expense of African and oppressed people around the world, and people are not accepting it. And this is the basis for the crisis that we see, that the U.S. can't just rule in the same old way anymore. We just saw Obama, who, as the chairman says, is a result of the crisis of imperialism because it couldn't put forward a white face anymore. It had to put forward the face that looks more like the rest of the world in order to carry out the imperialist agenda against Africans and oppressed people inside the border of the U.S. and around the world. And this crisis is very profound because it is very fortunate. It is a good thing for everybody around the world who is struggling against imperialism, struggling against colonialism, and working towards a better world. Now, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has been on a tour almost this whole year, building for the 6th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. And he has written, I just want to make sure this doesn't get forgotten in this event. The chairman has written this incredible political report. It's a book. And it is available at this time in a PDF form on uhurunews.com. It is the lead article. It is called The Political Report to the 6th Congress. I urge you to download that book and read it because it will blow your mind. It is incredible. It is scientific. It is looking at the world as it really is, not as we want it to be, through the eyes of African and oppressed people, and says how the future is going to look under the leadership of the African Revolution in unity with the revolution of the indigenous and oppressed people everywhere. And it is incredibly optimistic and gives you a vision of the future. The chairman, his political theory is called African internationalism, and it has set about solving the questions left unsolved from the defeat of the African Revolution of the 1960s. And one of those key questions is, well, what do we do with the white people? What is the relationship? How did things get to be the way they are? And why is it that everywhere we look around the world, if there are white people, if there are Euro-Americans, or whether we're in South Africa or Israel or Kenya or wherever we are, why is it that we have resources? Why is it that we have prosperity? Why is it that we even have democracy while every place that African people are around the world, they're impoverished, they're repressed, they're stuffed into prisons? Why is that? It is the chairman's theory that has shown that the reality is that it is because capitalism itself was born on the enslavement, on the assault on Africa. Because, as the chairman tells us, Europe was poor. In the Middle Ages, it was backwards, it was impoverished, it was illiterate. It didn't have anything. It was a cold, barren rock where the majority of the white people were starving to death as serfs. And you know how the history books always tell us, oh, it's this, quote, dark ages. Well, no, it was the white ages, but the fact is that those conditions didn't only exist in Europe. That wasn't true in Mexico, in the Aztec land. That wasn't true in Ghana. That wasn't true in China. That wasn't true in Zimbabwe, where incredible civilizations were flourishing. That was true in Europe. You know, but that's all we hear about in the history books. But anyway, the reality is that Europe, as the chairman tells us, rescued itself by sailing out and setting out to steal the gold of Africa and then the human beings of Africa, to turn Africa into, as Karl Marx said, a warren for the hunting of black skins, to turn African human beings by the entire continent into a commodity for sale that became the first and most lucrative commodity of capital, of capitalism. This is how the stock market started. This is how the New York Stock Exchange got its start, and London and Liverpool and Amsterdam and everything else. And in this same process of enslaving hundreds of millions of Africans and forcibly bringing them to this hemisphere to labor for free, this is how Europe got the sugar, the rum, the tobacco, and everything that it took to create a capitalist system that has the world power and wealth that it has today. And it is in this same process that Europe went out and committed genocide blatantly by the hundreds of millions of people against the indigenous people right here, wiped out the people in order to steal the land, and how it was Europe that colonized Asia, Latin America, the whole world, basically. The whole world was enslaved by Europe, by England, as the chairman said, that always bragged that it had an empire upon which the sun never set. This is the basis for the beginning of capitalism, and the understanding that the chairman has shown us that is so true is that all white people sit on this pedestal of the oppression of African, indigenous, and oppressed peoples. All of us, not just the 1%, and we're the rest of the 99%. We know that's not true. There's two Americas. We look at the prison situation in this country. The U.S. has the highest prison population in the entire world, 2.5 million people in prison, and the majority of them are African and indigenous people, not white people. We look at the murder of Trayvon Martin or Oscar Grant, and we hear the statistic that every 26 hours another African is killed by the police or somebody acting as the police in this country. Not white people are not killed by the police in that way. We look at the statistic that is real, that white people still in an economic downturn have 22 times the wealth of an African family today. And we could go on and on and on, but we know that there are two Americas, one living at the expense of the other. And when we are in this period of the crisis of imperialism, it's on us to say, if we want to have a future on this planet at all, our interest is standing in solidarity with the liberation of African, indigenous, and oppressed peoples everywhere. This is the week or month actually that the African People's Solidarity Committee is building, and we just had in Oakland and here in San Diego, the Day in Solidarity with African People. So we're out there in the communities organizing, trying to wake up other white people and doing that, because there are people that are open, that want to see a change, that hate this system that has brought violence down upon the whole world, and which has called on our complicity, and we have been complicit with the violence against African people, indigenous people, and everybody else on the planet. You know, they call this the greatest civilization on the planet Earth. Well, why is 70% of the white population taking Prozac and mind-altering drugs just to get through the day, if this is such a great civilization? Because we see that there is no future. There is no future. Living at the expense of everybody else, and truly that is no life at all. And that what we recognize is, if we want to be part of the future of solving the incredible problems that have been imposed on this planet through the same system that would enslave and colonize and commit genocide against everybody else, it's going to be the people, the oppressed people will solve the problems, not imperialism, not white power. And we want to be part of the future. We want to be part of creating a world in which all human beings can live, in which people don't have to live under the drone strikes, the threat of war, the theft of resources and enslavement, or being deported to here or there, or borders created by imperialism. None of that. That the only possibility for the future is for indigenous people to have their land back, for Africa to be in the hands of African people, and oppressed people around the world to have control over their resources. Now, one of the things that the chairman talks about is this question of opportunism of the white population, because sitting on the pedestal of everybody else, we've always, this is why we are under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, because given our own druthers, whatever, given the freedom to do something, we would never stand in solidarity in a real sense under the leadership of the African People's Socialist, or we wouldn't do it without the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We would go out there and build our own interests. And so this is why we are organizationally tied under the African Revolution, because in every case we've struggled for white rights, women's rights. What does it mean to say that, white people should have gay rights to what? To join the police force, to shoot down Africans and Mexicans, or join the military to kill people in Afghanistan? What kind of victory is that? That's opportunism. That's getting something for ourselves at the expense of everybody else. And we take a stand against that kind of opportunism and say we have to have a principled stand. And I want to say that Jason just talked about the attack on Kwame by a white nationalist, but also Jason is being attacked by a white nationalist, or really two white nationalists. And I want to talk about that, because there are two people that used to be in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. One is named Kathy, and one is named Aaron. And they have attacked Jason, who is taking responsibility to lead the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement here in San Diego. And we salute that. He's really should be, we really uphold him and the work that he has done. And I want to lay out what happened, because that is not our stance. They do not represent the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and that we have to take a principled stand, and that is the term set by the African People's Socialist Party. So these two people, white people, have attacked Jason, saying that something or other that he posted on Facebook or something is an attack on African women, or is oppressive to African women, blah, blah, blah. Now, to me, anybody in the white community that's concerned about African women needs to be demonstrating down at the U.S. social service agencies that oppress African women every single day. Or we need to be demonstrating at the police department that is not only killing the husbands and sons of African women, as we saw in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, it's killing African women. in front of their children. That's what we need to be doing. You know, we need to be standing in solidarity with the struggle of the whole African people for liberation, of which African women are in leadership of. So I reject all of this. I want to put it out there on the table because we have to struggle, we have to take an honest stand, and we have to demand from other white people a principled stand. Anybody who says they're in solidarity, that's what they have to take a stand. We are responsible to go into the belly of the beast, to fight what this country, this system does in our name to African and indigenous people every single day. Not to attack the African people who are struggling to lead their own movement in their own name. So I want to, I want to lay that out. And I'm very proud of the work that Wendy has done here in solidarity, in the solidarity movement. She's working to build a principled and genuine solidarity movement, a Uhuru solidarity movement, and I appreciate that work. And, you know, we salute the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement and all of the work that they do here in the stands of Jocelyn and the other members of that. And again, I just want to say, reiterate, it is very much of an honor to be here tonight, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Uhuru, comrades. How's everybody feeling tonight? Everybody's good? Tonight, a part of our efforts as well, I am the outreach coordinator here within PDM under the leadership of Omali Yeshitela, under the leadership of the President, Jason Kine. Part of my works in the movement, along with them, is outreach in the community, breaking down some of the barriers that keep us as a community divided. We also call upon you today as well to be joining the forces, but part of our forces and strategies also is raising funds for our efforts, but we're not just asking for you to necessarily give in all these ways. So what we're doing, we're going to raffle off today this very, 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 very awesome instrument known from the Sudan as a Sakura. Now, I'm saying many of you probably know the value of it, but today we're only going to ask you for a $5 raffle ticket to be involved in this raffle so that we can raise funds for our branch. So all of you make it an opportunity at the end of the night. We have tickets. You can get as many tickets as you like to boost your chance to win this item, the African Sakura. From what I understand, there's a birthright orientation with this particular instrument, is that not anyone gets to play it. You are born to it as a birthright to play it. So not everyone gets a chance to play this particular instrument. It's a great thing to have, I'm saying. Oh, Mother. She knows the true history of Mother Makeda. Give a round of applause for Mother Makeda for hosting the event for us today. The World Peace Center, the best cultural center we have in San Diego, holding it down.
Uhuru. Thank you, Uhuru. This is a kora, and in Africa, this is the griot. It tells the story of everything that's going on in the village. And it's our African harp. And you have to be born into that family, a kora family, the family of the griot. So this is a very, very important instrument. It's the African harp. It's very beautiful. We have a big one inside the World Beat Center in the gift store. So win this. It's having a kora in your house is very sacred. All right. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to Kweku.
Just real quick. The sister Khadijah is going to be walking around with the tickets that you can purchase and the bucket that you can put your ticket into that we'll draw toward the end of the night for the Quora. Okay? Thank you all for being involved. Everybody's involvement here is really, really crucial to what the works that we're trying to put on the ground here in San Diego. Your involvement is a part of what is really the truth of what Omali's movement is about. It's about the working class people here doing the works on the ground, and through us, the people, we can see it being manifest even in these days and times right now. Brother Jason, the president, I'm going to turn this mic back over to you. And can we get one big round of Uhuru? Uhuru! Uhuru! Give thanks.
Okay, first of all, I just want to thank Penny Hess. Like I said, she's set a standard for the white community, working with African people in solidarity, and just, I know, just real quick, I'm y'all. We're all the same. You know what I'm saying? Everybody deals with different levels of consciousness. But in terms of organizing in PETM in San Diego, I know that it's important. I know it's important for the entire African community. And we all just have to make sacrifices in our lives, because all of us have contradictions in our lives. It's just a certain level of humility that it takes to admit when you do something and be able to give a self-criticism, criticize yourself and say, look, I was supposed to run all the way downtown and make it there by 12. I ran as fast as I could, but I made it at 12:15. And acknowledging it and saying, next time, I'm gonna make it there at 12. It's real simple. And I know that I've learned how to organize in a principled way through the leadership of Chairman Omali. Our organization in PETM, our president's name is Diop Olugbala. I know Diop ain't here, but can I hear it for Diop? Let's give it up for Diop Olugbala. Diop does an amazing job of leading in PETM. He's consistently brings all of us into the work. He always makes sure that there's not this anarchist, liberal way of organizing and doing things haphazardly, and he doesn't let that happen. And so the way PETM is growing in San Diego, it's growing all over the world. And I want you all to be a part of this. Now, since the mid-60s, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has been struggling for the liberation of African people. He started an organization, JOMO, to fight the military assault on the African community. He was a member of SNCC. The Burning Spirit newspaper, which was started by Chairman Omali, has been running since early 1972, or is it 68? 66. Since 1966, the Burning Spirit newspaper has been running. It's the oldest running Black Power newspaper in the world. Chairman Omali is the leader of the Uhuru movement, which is comprised of thousands of people all over the world struggling for African liberation. Chairman Omali created PETM in 1991 so that we could bring the masses of African people into revolutionary organization, and we could support and organize for the African People's Socialist Party. A lot of people in the movement call Chairman the last man standing, because Chairman Omali has been struggling since the revolution of the 1960s. And Chairman Omali has been leading us courageously all over the world. And so we want to give another San Diego revolutionary warm welcome to the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and the leader of the Uhuru movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
I'm not a hunter, but I'm told that in places like in the Arctic, where indigenous people sometimes might hunt a wolf, they'll take a double-edged blade and they'll put blood on the blade and they'll melt the ice and stick the handle in the ice so that only the blade is protruded, and that a wolf will smell the blood and wants to eat, and it'll come and lick the blade trying to eat. And what happens is when the wolf licks the blade, of course, he cuts his tongue and he bleeds. Uhuru, brothers and sisters, compañeros y compañeras, I'd like to first express my appreciation to Sister Makeda and the staff and organizers of this center. And I think it's extremely important that you are here. And it makes it possible for us to be here. And the consistency over the years. I ran into this sister some years ago at Whole Foods and didn't know who she was, and she stopped me and indicated that she needed to know who I was, invited me to come backstage because Bunny Whalers was coming to town, and but he was coming to town on the day I was leaving. But I really appreciate the fact that you're here and that this center is available to us. I'd also cannot say enough about the significance of the presence and work of Union de Barrio here, and it's one of those times that I come to here to San Diego after having come for so many years, more than 30 years in and out of San Diego, as a guest of Union de Barrio, and experiencing just the powerful hospitality of the Mexican community. It has always been just so great to be here. And this is a relatively sad occasion because my dear comrade, man who I feel was a revolutionary giant and whose imprint, this continues to hum. Is there something that I'm doing wrong? Oh, okay. I think that who has left a serious imprint in history. Compañero Chairman Ernesto Bustillo. It's difficult coming to San Diego and him not being here. Huey Newton says, the power of the people is greater than the man's technology. I unite with that. So I just want to say, and how much I've learned as a consequence of coming to San Diego. I've learned a lot about the struggle of the Mexican people, but the reality is that I've learned a lot about the struggle of Africans and other people through what I've learned about the struggle of Mexican people. Because none of us exist in some kind of vacuum. And once we get a fundamental understanding of some laws of social development, if we have an opportunity to experience them and to examine them in any society, we got a pretty good understanding of what's happening in other societies. And the more information that we can get about what's happening with other people around the world, the more that we also have an opportunity to know about ourselves. And so I've learned an incredible amount as a consequence of this relationship with Unión de Barrio. I want to salute Jason in Impidum, San Diego. For a long time now, we have been engaged in the struggle to try to put revolutionary presence, African presence here in San Diego. And it is something that for a long time Unión de Barrio has also been working to try and help us with. The influence of Unión de Barrio and so many of the institutions throughout San Diego is extremely powerful. I mean, I've come and done things and I'm not, I guess I shouldn't mention the institutions because I don't want to jam people up. But I've come and done things in certain institutions in San Diego and spoken to students and other people that I never would have had an opportunity to do in any other place I've been in this country. And it's just testimony to the kind of work that's being done here. And so I salute you for that. Also, compañeras Kathy and Monica here. I forgot what year it was, but I was moving through Holland. I was in Holland, and I walked into this meeting that was being held by an international revolutionary organization. And these compañeras were there. And there was a panel discussion that was happening where all of these people were talking about what was happening around the world, and on the table, on this panel, there was a spot there to talk about the struggle of oppressed peoples in this country, and sitting at the table was a white woman. And I will never forget, compañera Ashley, she picked up the banner of Unión de Barrio, grabbed a chair, and put the chair up to the table and pushed the other people down because we were going to speak for ourselves. And this was a very bold and powerful thing happened in Holland, of all places, right? So thank you very much. Thank all of you for coming out and giving me an opportunity to have this discussion with you. It's already been mentioned that I've been traveling for a while now. In the recent period, I've traveled to Ghana in West Africa, and then from Ghana, I've traveled to Stockholm in Holland, organizing and being with Africans who are organized there as a part of our movement. I've traveled to Paris, where African Liberation Day was held in June. I left Paris, I went to Cologne in Germany, I went to Berlin in Germany, I went to London, England, traveled throughout Europe, organizing African people. And within this country, I've been everywhere. I've been thinking that we should tally up the miles that I've traveled over this last period. And the reason I've been traveling is not because I simply enjoy. In fact, I hate traveling. I hate traveling because I hate packing. You know, don't you hate packing? I mean, I hate packing, but it's not that I enjoy traveling that I've been moving around so much. I've been moving around so much because there's something critical that's happening in the world today. And the old explanations that we've had don't satisfy this reality anymore. They don't satisfy to explain what's happening in the world. The old narratives have to be discarded, and we have to create a new narrative for what's happening in the world, and we have to come to a different kind of scientific understanding. My beginning in politics was probably much like everybody else who's come to political life. I was pissed off. I was tired of living in a world where every place I looked, in this world, African people were catching hell. People look like me, live in misery, in poverty, ignorance imposed over our lives, violence in our lives every day. I grew up in a community watching sisters, black women, Africans, who get up early in the mornings and put on their little white uniforms and then wait on the corner for some white person to drive up. And then they'd get in the back seat of the white people's cars to go clean their houses or take care of their children, while we had situations where the woman's child would be left in the community snot-nosed and nobody there to take care of the child except the neighbors, right? I didn't like that at all. I didn't like the explanations that I was getting for why this reality was as it is and as it has been. I didn't like the fact that everywhere I looked, that my people were poor and suffering and had no good explanation for it. I was told in school even, and every other thing I could get my hands on explained this reality as something that had come about as a consequence of white people simply being more civilized than African people. And of course, white people are thrifty and we are not. So therefore, it is logical that white people would be well off and Africans would not be well off. And I think about what a burden this is for most oppressed people around the world who've been fed this garbage of the inherent superiority of white people and some kind of inherent ineptitude of Africans and other people who are not white. And this is the burden that, we walk through life trying to deal with. This is the burden. You're walking down the streets at any given time and a cop comes up to you. He doesn't know you, you don't know him. He comes up to you and then says, you fit the description. Come go with me. And then you go down the street with this white man with a gun. And he walks into a place and says, is this the one? And if you're lucky, the white woman doesn't say, yes, that's the one. Because if she says, that's the one, something horrible is going to happen to me. That's just the reality that I grew up with and most of us live with right now today. And I didn't like that at all. I left school in my senior year. And I'm fortunate that I never went to a so-called integrated school. I left school in my senior year because this very erudite, highly intellectual African teacher, and I had been tracked into this special classes and what have you. He made the statement one day that in order for African people, black people, perhaps he said Negroes, or something to that effect, in order for us to be free, we had to prove ourselves to white people. And I didn't like that. And I raised my hand and tried to struggle with this guy, but this guy was learned and plus he commanded the podium. He was in charge of the class and it was very little I could do in this contest with this guy. But there was something absolutely horribly wrong with that kind of statement. I didn't have any political education, but I know something was messed up for you to tell me that in order for us to be free, that somehow we got to prove ourselves to the people who are kicking our asses, right? So I left school at that juncture, and I left high school. I quit in my senior year because of this and similar kinds of contradictions that I have been dealing with. And the point that I'm making is that my movement into political consciousness probably came in a way that's similar to most of the people in this room. Just stuff happening to us in our lives. This is the basis for our beginning to investigate political science and the science of society, because stuff was happening in our lives. And something very obvious was happening to us. And that's white people were doing horrible things. I mean, I grew up during a time when lynching was nigger knocking was the national pastime in this country. A white person gets bored doesn't have something interesting to do, pissed with his wife, go out and grab an African and do something horrible to him. I mean, that was the reality and it still is the reality. That's what George Zimmerman was all about. But that was a very obvious kind of reality that I grew up with. And this is the stuff that informed me. And so we see white people doing all these horrible things and enjoying it, obviously enjoying it. You see the pictures of the lynch scenes and stuff like that, where people are having picnics while they are burning black people to death. And I learned to read almost before I could walk. I mean, I was, in diapers when I learned to read, and my textbook that I learned to read from was the newspaper. So, I had an aunt who would get on the floor with me as a toddler and then would go through the newspaper teaching me how to read. So, you're talking now about the 1940s. So you can have some idea of what I'm reading about in the newspaper at this time, what is happening to African people around the country in particular. And so this is the kind of stuff that informed my consciousness, that filled my consciousness, that this horrible stuff that white people was doing. But I was going to get out of St. Petersburg, Florida, where I grew up, because I was clear that one of the reasons that I could not see a future as an African was because I'm living in this small southern Florida town. I'm getting the hell out of here. And the United States Army made a promise to me. They said, join the Army and see the world. I said, well, damn, I'll do that. I'll join the Army and then I'll get out of this. And my daddy, who, very smart man, that I did not respect that much at the time, who only had a second grade education, told me a long time ago that I was an educated fool, right? And it took me about 40 years to figure out that he was telling the truth, which is testimony to just how right he was, right? And my daddy told me, said, boy, you're going into the Army, it's like breaking into jail. But I was sure that I was going to find this place, going into the Army where an African person could be somebody. And on the train that was taking me to St. Petersburg, Florida, to the induction center, which was during the holidays and Christmas holidays. It was in December, and the train was packed, and many of us were standing on the train. It was so crowded. And I'm standing next to this little short white guy. His name was Sailor. I'll never forget that. This was a long time ago. You can see it etched this way itself on my brain. And he turns to me and he said, I hate to see that. I hate to see that. And I said, what are you talking about? And then he points to an African who was sitting. And he said, a nigger sitting next to a white woman. I mean, it knocked the breath out of me. I couldn't believe that this guy just said this stuff to me. I saw Sailor a few weeks later because it was the holidays and we were being sent, given an opportunity to come back for Christmas leave. And while we were waiting at the tent for the transportation to take us to the airport, Sailor pops up, and his face was black as in blue, and his eyes were barely open and blackened and what have you. I said, what happened to you? He said, some niggas jumped on me. I said, they kicked your ass, didn't they? But this is the experience that I'm having going into the Army, where I'm going to learn, have this opportunity to be something. And this is where I'm beginning to understand that it's not St. Petersburg, Florida, that's the problem. They sent me, the United States military, after sending me to a school to learn how to be a tank mechanic, to the dismay of the person who was training me. Said they should have sent you to Baker School, fella. But they sent me to Berlin, Germany. To Berlin, Germany. I was there when they built the Berlin Wall. I was there in Germany, right? That was occupied by the United States, France, England, and the Soviet Union. I was was in one of the first tanks that ever faced a Soviet tank in a hostile situation. I'm in Berlin, Germany, 18 years old. First time I've ever seen snow in my life. In a situation where I thought human beings couldn't even live. It was so damn cold, right? I'm in a tank in the middle of the winter, facing Russians who never done a damn thing to me, right? In Germany, that's never done a damn thing for me, right? And facing Russian tanks. What an incredible situation. And at the same time this is happening, the civil rights movement is heating up throughout the United States. And I'm sitting in this freezing tank one night, early in the morning, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the other side has a propaganda machine that's working full blast. And they're playing music. And I turned to the station, all of us did, because they had the best music, right? And I'll never forget this woman. She says, and right now, what I'm going to play for you is Peace Down South. She said, by Louis Armstrong. She said, but of course, there is no peace down south since the civil rights movement started. Ha, ha, ha. That definitely struck a chord in me. And there were other kinds of events that were happening all around me. The treatment of Africans, like I'm in Berlin, Germany, which at the time had only been militarily defeated by the United States and the other powers for something like 14 years when I got there. This is the Nazis, this is the beast, etc. But I didn't have contradictions and problems with the Germans, right? It was with U.S. troops who were supposed to be on the same side that I was on, who went to, the white guys went to one club, the Africans went to another club, and if you showed up accidentally at these white guys' club, you were going to get your ass kicked. So this is what I learned going into it. But one other thing that was really just so educational, because as I said, Berlin was occupied by all of these different military forces. And I was in a company, a tank outfit, and there were only 10 Africans in it. I think there might have been 110 or so in the entire company. And occasionally, French or British troops or officers would come and participate in some kind of training process. And I'm sitting on the grass with all the other troops, and this British officer is standing talking to us. And he says that we just got back from the Congo. I don't know anything about the Congo. And he says that in the Congo, we had to use special bullets because ordinary bullets just bounce off their heads. And he looked straight at me when he said that. That was really informative. I am really being educated through this process, right? And so my basic point is that I'm learning some things through my own experiences. And I'm learning some things, I'm learning horrible things about white people. Not just white people in the United States, I'm learning things about white people in general, all around. These white people do horrible things, and that was how my consciousness first came to grapple with these issues. And of course, what was happening to African people in this country, I had to see what was happening with our children being bombed in Birmingham, Alabama, and dogs being sicked on people simply trying to join the Democratic Party. So that was how my consciousness was first challenged through this process in life. These are the kinds of things that push me, as they push most of us in this room, our experiences in life, to study political economy, to study science of society, to try to get a grasp of what the hell was going on. And as you know, this whole movement, civil rights and black power and revolutionary movement that was happening around the world also took place and mobilized all people in this country as well. It was a hell of a period of time. It was an extraordinary period of time. And in China, The Chinese used to characterize it as a period at which there was great disorder under the heavens. They said where revolution was the main trend in the whole world. Revolution was happening everywhere, or attempting to happen everywhere. And that was a time that I came to a political awakening and got involved in political struggle, because I left Germany, and they sent me back to Fort Benning, Georgia. I wrote a 13-page letter to John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was then U.S. President, telling them I wanted out of this. I have no reason being in your army. You understand that the protecting a system that's committing murder and mayhem against Africans for simply trying to vote. I said, I know you don't understand this because you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and what have you, but I want out of this. And I began to start organizing on the military base. I began to start organizing other Africans. I began to start agitating and putting up propaganda on bulletin boards and things like this. And then they court-martialed me. First they said, we think you should leave. And I said, that's the point I've been trying to make for a while now. You understand? I've been trying to make this point for a while now. I actually went on strike. I stopped going to work. Everybody go to work, I stay in the bunk. Understand? All of the jokes, the nasty jokes that white people and soldiers would tell. I'm walking across the motor pool, and this sergeant comes up to me, this African, he says, and he's walking with this white guy, and he tells the white guy, that says, tell Waller that joke, because that's what they called me at the time, because I was named for a white man at that time, a white family who enslaved us. And so they named their dogs and cows and things like that. They named us. I'm lucky they didn't call me Lassie, but they called Waller, tell Waller that joke. And the poor fella, he would look at me and he said, you ever hear the joke? You hear the joke about the black guy and the mule? And I would be extraordinarily rude, so rude that I can't even repeat it to you. But after a while, people began to get the hint that I wasn't the guy that they were supposed to do this kind of thing too. So they sent me, first they brought a psychiatrist to see me, right? Because something must be wrong with this guy. He doesn't like white people. We know he's crazy. And they sent a psychiatrist to see me, a lieutenant. And I scared the fella. I mean, the kid, I scared him to death, you understand? And so he left, and I don't know what his report was. But then they sent me to the main post and sent me to this major who was the main psychiatrist, and he was asking me questions and things like that. And so when we finished, he said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a Garveyite. See, damn right. I didn't even know what a Garveyite was. I didn't know who Garvey was, but this white guy, it sounds like, that sounds all right to me, And so, this is a sort of a process that I was going through, achieving some kind of consciousness. It wasn't solid enough. It wasn't good enough. I went through the whole period of the 1960s, and it wasn't like we had revolutionary veterans that we could turn to and say, hey, how do you figure this? What does this mean? Anything like that. There was any science to it. There was no science. The only thing we had to go by was what we saw and experienced ourselves. There was no science, no method that we had of investigating and interpreting, analyzing what it is that we saw, except that crackers are doing all these horrible things in the world, etc., and that was something easy. And then you had groups that were saying the white man is the devil, right? Well, I was kind of moving away from religion at that time, but hell, that sounds like a good religion that you want to adopt. The white man is the devil. Everything that I've seen in the world proves that's true. The white man is the devil. So I actually, had a meeting at my house with these people who was from the Nation of Islam. Because I said, I'm going to join these guys, right? Because, they've come up with a profoundly important religious tenet. And then I sat down with them, and they began to try to explain, they were explaining what they called Islam to me. And I knew more about Islam than they did. And so they became afraid of me. And then when they got scared of me, I got scared of them. And so it didn't seem like we were going to be able to do anything together. Plus, the thing that I've always been convinced of is that you don't have to make up nothing on white people. You don't have to invent something. You don't have to lie on white people. Just tell the damn truth. I mean, the truth is bad enough, right? So why make up something? Just say what happened, right? And anyway, you know, this became a part of the quest that I became involved in trying to find some science and in being involved in struggle. I joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This was the organization that came up with the slogan and demand Black Power. I joined that organization and participated in that movement. This was my political life, but the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was actually a civil rights organization. As militant as it was a civil rights organization. And in the process of doing this work, I found myself in and out. I was in jail so many times, I had to read the newspaper to find out where I was. I mean, I was in jail all the time. And then on one of these occasions, while in jail, it dawned on me that the only way out of this thing is revolution. Truly, I was in jail. I was in a cell. I was in a jail cell. When it dawned on me, the only way out of here is revolution. And so I began to start looking, investigating what that meant. I remember even when I was in Berlin, Germany, I told this sergeant who was the educational officer in this outfit that I was a communist. He said, "You're not a communist." I said, "I am a communist." And all I knew was the communists believe in end of class society and exploit. He said, "If you're a communist, what's dialectical materialism?" And damn if I knew anything about a dialectical material. What is a dialectical materialism? See, I told you, you're not a communist. His name was Lee. I haven't forgotten his name either. But I did begin to be organized. And then in the process of being organized, some of the greatest fights and contests we had were with white leftists who called themselves communists and who would define our reality in a way that was absolutely nonsensical. I knew what they were saying was crazy, that somehow Africans and white people just unite and fight, and that somehow that Africans, black people, and others were some kind of auxiliary force that was going to support the struggle of the white workers to take power. And that didn't make any sense to me, because how does that affect the relationship of power existing between black people and white people with you taking power, right? It's just another group of white people that's got power, you know, and so that didn't make sense. And it became necessary for me to begin to investigate, and I did investigate. And I did become a communist for real, in terms of understanding some things about the world, how it got to be this way, and learning to hate capitalism, which is a vicious social system that was born on slavery, colonialism, and genocide. It has no redeeming qualities at all. Nothing about it is redeeming. And so that was one of the things, I learned to hate it. And I just want to say that this is a part of a trajectory that I was on, and everybody has more or less gone through a similar kind of thing to understand what was happening in the world. But this tour that I've been involved in is a consequence of deciding and learning through struggle, through actions and involvements all over the United States, and particularly in the South, that we had to have a different kind of organization. I founded an organization called the Junta of Militant Organizations, JOMO. And JOMO was the name that we chose because of the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, an organization that was called Mau Mau, that fought against British colonialism in Kenya, that tied down the British Empire for a number of years with the struggle that they were making in Kenya against white power. And their slogan demand was Uhuru, which is how Uhuru came to be our slogan demand. We were influenced by the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, or the Mau Mau. And this period that we are talking about, when we see this kind of eruption happening in Kenya and various other places around the world informed us and informed our consciousness in a very serious way. So it became clear that JOMO, this kind of organization, very similar to the Black Panther Party, this kind of organization was not enough. It was not good enough to keep demonstrating against the question, around the issues. That we had to create a political organization, the mission of which was to capture and to wield political power. We had to wield an organization that the mission of which was to capture and wield political power. That's what it was all about. Not just demonstrating about how bad things are happening to us, but we had to get the power in our own hands. And we came to understand that the highest expression of the will of the people to have power is the political party. And so we organized a political party, but we understood that the political party had to be different from the political parties that we were familiar with. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, that won't do. Because the Democratic and Republican Party, we understood, were parties of a particular class. They were a party of the white ruling class. They let you join it. I mean, you can go and sign up for it and everything, but you are not a part of it. Believe me when I tell you, you're not a part of it. They let you join it. And we had to, and a political party always represents a particular class. Every political party represents a particular class. It is the advanced detachment of a particular class. And of the ruling class, you have wealthy people who might be bedwetters, who might be wife beaters, who might be insane, who might know nothing about what's going on in Afghanistan, going on in our communities where we are oppressed at all. They don't care, many of them. But the political party that represents them is working in their interests all the time. Whether they are conscious or not, their party works for them. We need to have a party like that too. We need to have our own party so that any given time, the African working people who may be victimized by drugs pumped into our communities, victimized by this thing that they call the educational system that's put up there to wreck consciousness and things like that, and may not be conscious of what the hell is going on. But they need a political party that represents the advanced detachment, that is the advanced detachment, the general staff that always represents their interests. Whether they have been blasted by crack cocaine or any other kind of madness, that party all the time has to represent their interests. And so we built the African People's Socialist Party to do that. And another thing that we came to learn pretty soon is that there is not going to be any liberation, any freedom for African people anywhere in the world as long as we try to fight these battles within the borders that were created by imperialism for us. There's not going to ever be a Ghana revolution, or a Sudan revolution, or a Liberian revolution, or for that matter, a successful, lasting Haitian revolution. There's not going to be a Negro revolution in America. At best, what we are looking at is different fronts of the African Revolution which have to be made in Haiti, which have to be made in the United States, Canada, and every place African people are located. We need a single organization of the type that Marcus Garvey attempted to create. That's what we need. We need a single organization that will give our revolution a strategic character on every front. So whether you are fighting in San Diego, you are connected with your brothers and sisters who are fighting in Stockholm, who are connected with the brothers and sisters who are organizing and fighting in Sierra Leone, all around the world, a single organization, so that no matter what you're doing, it always has a strategic front. You see? That's the thing that we have to create. So that's what we built. That's why I've been doing all this traveling, and we do exist. We do exist. We don't exist in great numbers yet, except on the continent where it's great numbers compared to what we find here, because things are so raw on the continent. And at this point, organizing is simpler because of that. But we do exist in the Caribbean. We're in Colombia, in South America. We're in Canada. We're throughout Germany, several different places in Germany. We're in France, England. We're in Sweden. We're in Belgium. And we're in various places throughout this country and Canada. And we are in the Bahamas. Did I mention that? So this is, we feel like an obligation to organize, to put on the ground everywhere we can in the world, wherever there are African people, to put on the ground revolutionary organization with a commitment to make a revolutionary struggle to overturn a social system based on slavery and colonialism so that we can be free. And to do this in unity with all the other oppressed peoples around the world so that we can create a different kind of world. So I want to just say some things briefly and get out your way. One thing I want to say about the relationship with Unión de Barrio, which is extremely important, is that Africa is our national homeland as African people. And ultimately, our struggle is about liberating and uniting Africa and African people around the world, on the one hand. But on the other hand, we are also a part of the revolutionary movement of the Americas. We are throughout the Americas. And so we are part of the revolution of the Americas as well. That's just a practical reality. And so that's one of the reasons I think it's important. There are other reasons it's important if anybody wants to investigate it, because of our kinship. It's political, that's clear. We're tied by a common enemy, that's clear. But the other thing, if you want to look at it, we're tied by blood. When you look at the Africans and so-called Mexicans and other indigenous people, they're tied by blood. It's a blood relationship as well. But something very important is happening right now that's different from everything that we've experienced in the 60s in many ways. It's a critical point, a critical historical moment. And you don't even have to have much education to understand that something drastic and dramatic is occurring in the world. If you look at a newspaper, you see that the U.S. is engaged in permanent warfare. How long have they been in Afghanistan? 12, 13 years? What about Iraq, that they've wrecked after going in and overthrowing a government and lynching the president in what they call a trial? We know about those kinds of trials, don't we? Right? Going in and lynching the president in what they call a trial. Look at any place you look. Now, you can't open a newspaper and not see that there's crisis, explosions, disruptions, chaos every place in the world. And you see also that this crisis represents itself economically. Here, I've heard people crying crocodile tears about what they see happening in Greece. You know, there are people in Greece now who, Greece has this extraordinarily high suicide rate because people are killing themselves because they can't deal with the economic crisis that they're confronted with. Some people only have one meal a day in Greece. In other words, in Greece, what you find are white people now faced with the same kind of conditions that most of us have been faced with all along. You find that happening in Greece, in France, in Italy, in Portugal, all over Europe. This economic crisis is roiling everything. It's got so serious that the European Union, that's sort of dominated by Germany primarily, and demanding what they call austerity throughout these countries because they've had this free for a long time. And Greece is now suing Germany because Germany is demanding so much austerity. Greece is suing Germany for reparations. Did you know that? Greece is suing Germany for reparations because of what the Nazis did during the Second Imperialist War. So it's some kind of crisis that's happening out there. And you and I need to get a grasp of what's going on so that we can move forward. And the other thing I want to say about that is that this is not a crisis that should frighten us. They said the government shut down. I said, not long enough. Not long enough. That's the damn objective. You understand? To shut it down. To stop the terrorists. To end their tracks. You understand? And so I just want to say again, I grew up like most of you in this room have had to grow up burdened with an explanation about our poverty. When I say our, I mean our people, our community, burdened by an explanation that we've been given by the system for the violence in our communities, for the ignorance in our community, etc., explained to us by this assumption of the superiority of white people versus Africans and other people. And but what we've come to understand is nothing could be further from the truth. And right now, the people in Afghanistan, the people in Syria, the people in Iran, the people in Venezuela and throughout South America are engaged in changing that narrative, saying that ain't the way it is. And the explanations that they are offering today don't ring true for anybody anymore. But let's get to what the truth is. The truth is that we live in a capitalist world. Not just a capitalist country, a capitalist world. Capitalism predetermines what happens in San Diego, but in the smallest village in Uganda. Capitalism dominates the entire world. It's a world economy. And, but it was not something that Jesus bestowed on white people that made them wealthy. Something else happened that created capitalism. And the fact is that when we, you and I, our people met Europeans or white people were poor, they were unfree, they lived under feudal domination. And feudalism was a system that lasted for 1,000 years in Europe. Comrade Penny Hess was talking about feudalism. They characterized it as the Dark Ages in Europe, where in some instances people literally were naked. They had no clothing at all. They were not slaves and could be sold as what happened to us, but they was the next closest thing to being slaves. They were tied to the land that was owned by the nobility or the landlord. Even the term that you use for the person that you have to pay your rent to in this country comes from landlord, from feudalism. That's who owned the land, the lord. And sometimes when people worked, they were able to, on that land, they were able to have some of what they produced, but the majority went to the landlord, to the nobility. That was the setup that they had then. People tied to the land, trapped on the land. This is where the legend of Robin Hood comes from, because there was no other way for people to get riches, to get wealth, or be able to take care of themselves. So this imaginary figure would come through and rob the rich to give resources to the poor. Feudalism. We're talking about a time when Europe had experienced a plague that had killed half the population at least in a 4-year period. They called it the Black Plague. But Levi and I didn't have anything to do with it. And it killed not only people, it killed cattle, it killed dogs and cats, and it was so terrifying that the Pope, who was supposed to have this special relationship with God, didn't trust that relationship enough to stay in the Vatican. He got the hell out of town and tried to go someplace where there's nobody else around so that he wouldn't die too, right? It was a serious situation. The economy was wrecked. There was no freedom. There was disease. There was poverty in Europe. And that's not the story that we get told. That's not the story. We get told that Europeans left Europe because they had an abundance, a surplus of civilization and Christianity that they just had to share with the rest of us. Right? It's like imperialist armies today going into countries to help them. Right? It's just an old story. So they were coming to bring us a part of the surplus of Christianity and civilization that they had. And one of their most effective and popular writers, colonial writers at the time, a man named Rudyard Kipling, coined the term, the white man's burden. Say, we don't want to go out there and deal with these so-called Indian savages or black savages, but it's the white man's burden to go and take this civilization and Christianity to them. What really chased them out of Europe was poverty and disease. And where they came to were places where people were free, and where people were not diseased, and where people were not impoverished. That's what brought them to this land. That's what brought them to Africa, so that by 1500, Portugal, little tiny Portugal, backwater Portugal, had taken 700 tons of gold out of Africa by 1500. And then, of course, we saw this whole sweep of the continent of Africa. That's why I'm here on this land today, because Africa was assaulted. Africa was attacked. And African people were scattered, dispersed around the world. They like to talk about this country being a so-called nation of immigrants. We say that this country is not a nation at all. It's a prison of nations. And that Africans are not immigrants, we are captives. We are captives. That's how we got here, on somebody else's land. We were captured and brought here against our will. We didn't come here looking for a better way of life. We lost a better way of life as a consequence of having been brought here and Africa being attacked. But this process that took my freedom and took my land and took somebody else's land is a process that took tremendous amounts of wealth to a starving and diseased and unfree Europe. This is how white people became property owners. They didn't own any homes in Europe under feudalism. This notion of a man's home being his castle, yeah, there was a castle there, but it didn't belong to the people. They got their freedom and their resources by taking mine and taking yours. Are you with me on that? They tell us these fairy tales in school. They tell us about the so-called democratic revolutions in Europe, in England and France, and all these other places that happened because suddenly they began reading books by Rousseau and other so-called other liberals that talked about freedom. And this is what inspired the revolution. Hell no. Was no book that inspired the revolution in Europe. What inspired the transformation of Europe was a whole new group of people became much richer than the nobility, than the kings and queens of slavery and stealing this and other lands around the world. And they challenged the social system by their power, by their growing power. This is what created the Industrial Revolution. This is what made the Industrial Revolution necessary. They needed more ships to sail the earth, to colonize people, to deliver slaves and pick up slaves and stuff like that. They needed more ships. They needed people off the damn land who were tied to the land as serfs. They needed them now working in these new factories that they were developing to make the ships. They needed town settlers on the coast, houses to be built, clothing to be created, process, chains to be made, and a better way to make them more efficiently so that they could carry out the mission of enslaving the world. This is how the capitalist system got born. You with me on that? It got born at our expense. And the reality is, before slavery, there was no such thing as Europe. Before slavery, there was no such thing as the white man. Before slavery and then colonialism, Europeans defined themselves primarily in relationship to each other. Celts, Saxons, Visigoths, people constantly at war, tribes, constantly at war with each other. They defined themselves primarily in relationship to each other. What was it then that created a sense of sameness among all of these people who we now know as Europeans? It was slavery, first of all. It was the common engagement in enslaving human beings. It was the common engagement in colonialism and the economy that was born from it that united the whole world in a common economy. And so now we have the white man. You couldn't have the white man before. It's like if you only have people who we now call white in a situation, can you see them walking up here as you're so white? Are you the whitest person I ever saw? No, the whiteness had to be a reflection of us. They had to create blackness, the black man, before they could have the white man. Just like you can't have up without having down, can you? So, this is how the whole sense of sameness emerged. Not just as a concept, but resting on a material economic foundation of colonialism and slavery. And they became what we now know as nations. The sense of sameness resting on a common economic basis. They became nations, and we became races. So, what happens is that at the juncture, we accept the concept of race, which is a European colonial invention. The term didn't even exist before slavery and colonialism. And it comes about at around the same time the concept of a nation develops in Europe. So they become nations. And then, by us becoming races, we disappear from the face of the earth. We can't find each other anymore. If we were Africans when we got on the ship coming to this land, 1619, if we were Africans when we got on that ship coming to this land in 1619, we had to still be Africans when we got off the ship in Jamestown, Virginia. You can't get on a ship as one thing and then get off as something else unless Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock has something to do with it. If we were Africans when we got on the ship, damn it, we were Africans when we got off the ship. But they disappeared us because we are no longer Africans. We have been given another definition by the ones who colonized us, by the ones who oppressed us. And they took it a step further. Because in 1884 and 85, a group of white people, white countries, came together in Germany of all places and sat down at a table just like the mafia. And then carved up Africa and gave parts of Africa to different European entities. Here, France, this is yours. This is yours, Germany. And of course, as you know, you had a situation where Leopold, the king, Leopold from Belgium, got possession of the Congo and some other places, and the Congo is 80 times larger than Belgium. And so, this is the basis, part of the basis for all the wealth that comes to Europe and to white people. But guess what? Another fundamental component of the wealth that created capitalism, consolidated the power of capitalism in white people, is the theft of this land. This land right here that we stand on today. The theft of this land is a part of the way that they consolidated capitalism in the world. We live, you and I, in a country, a land base, a land mass, where some of the traditional indigenous custodians of the land are in concentration camps that they call reservations. A so-called Indian reservation is nothing but a damn concentration camp. It's a concentration camp. The people's land gets stolen. This is the falsification. This is what they use. They take control of all the definitions. So now I become a race. I'm no longer an African. Somebody on the continent of Africa trying to find their brothers and sisters who've long gone, they can't locate me, because where it used to be an African, there's now a Haitian, a Jamaican, a Negro American, now an African American, or some other things like that. Or even next door on the continent of Africa. Did you know that in Africa, only 3 to 7% of economic activity, of so-called trade, happens among African people on the continent itself? Only 3 to 7%. The rest of what they call trade is Africa being looted and resources going to Europe, to North America, and increasingly to China and other places like that. And we don't even have the ability to fight for it. Because we know Africans, they say, well, I'm not an African. You know, I was born in America. You know? And, you know, they scare me when they talk like that. Because it makes me want to run to New York. Because you got these people coming in every day, every year, to participate at the United Nations there. And I want to hold up a sign when they're walking in saying, look, you better get out of here quick. Because if you stay here too long, you're going to turn into a Negro, right? It's like you want to ask them, what's the due date? You know what I mean? What's the use by date when you get here? How long do I have to be here before I become a Negro? How long am I to be here before I lose my identity? It's a false national consciousness that has been imposed on us in all of these various places. Let me just give you a glaring example for those of you who hesitate to believe or unite with that. There's a place in West Africa. When the Portuguese first got there, they called it Cameroon because they found a lot of shrimp there. And the word Cameroon comes from the Portuguese word for shrimp. And so you got a lot of people who live there who run around calling themselves shrimp. But they are not shrimp. They're Africans. And just like people run around calling themselves African Americans, we're not African Americans. You can't be an African and American at the same time. That's a contradiction in terms. That's like trying to be a slave and a slave master at the same time. America was created at the expense of Africa. We have to insist on this. We have to insist on this, that we are one nation of African people who have been dispersed around the world, and artificial borders have been created to separate us from each other, from our resources, and from a common and united consciousness. So we hate capitalism that came about like that. Want to see what's happened to the indigenous people? Somebody come here and steal half of Mexico. Stole half of Mexico at gunpoint. It's not like the lie they told about Manhattan. You heard the lie when you went to school, right? That the dumb Indians sold this to us for $24 and some beads and stuff like that, which is extraordinary. It's impossible, first of all, to have occurred because the indigenous people had no such thing as private property. They couldn't have sold it. Nobody owned it in that fashion, right? So we hate capitalism and all of the horrors it's committed. Steal half of Mexico. Draw an arbitrary line that's a border there. And then declare the people whose land was stolen as illegal aliens when they come across the border, when they come across that line that you drew. The damn line wasn't there before you came. In fact, you know, that's just an incredible logic. Listen, we have to reject this, and we have to have enough confidence to reject it, because our brothers and our sisters in the communities will reject it. Even if Negro academics and stuff like that won't come along with us, the masses will agree with us and they will unite with what we are talking about, because the narrative has to be changed. The only reason that they've got away with this up to now is because they have the guns. They have the power. They've been able to define what reality is against our will and against the people who are victimized by it. That's how my daddy's name came to be Waller. He wouldn't have volunteered to be a damn Waller. It's a British name. And now somebody who's coming from the continent of Africa trying to find their relative, they leave Africa trying to find their relative and they run into somebody named Waller. How the hell do we locate each other under these kind of circumstances? This is what the whole race politic and false national consciousness has created. So we hate capitalism. We hate capitalism because it's based on commodity production, isn't it? And commodity, as you know, is something that's created for sale, for trade. It's all about profit. It's all about trade. Everything is for profit. Everything that's produced is for profit. If you got a hospital, it's not to deal with sick people, it's to make money. If you got food, it's not to feed hungry people, it's to make money. Profit is the motive force in everything in a capitalist society. Everything. You got clothing, it's not to feed people who need clothing, it's to make money. Capitalism. And it permeates the consciousness and attitudes of everybody in the capitalist society. It's a vicious dog-eat-dog kind of society. That's capitalism. So that's one reason we hate capitalism. We hate capitalism because it's based on private ownership of the things that's necessary to produce what we need to exist. So here we living in a world where in order for anything to be produced, it's produced socially. All production is done socially. If you work in a factory, people in that factory work together socially in order to produce it. If you work in a factory, sometimes people, you go to a department store now, you pick something off that's made in Vietnam. Part of it may be made in Germany or some other place, the automobile and assembled in some other places. Socially, people produce everything. All value, everything that you see is produced socially, on the one hand. But on the other hand, you have private ownership of it. So you got social production and then private ownership. People have to come together to produce everything, but the ones who produce it don't own it. It's owned by somebody who don't do any producing at all. Hey, I didn't see your ass out here in the field picking those vegetables before Lucky's got them. You understand? How is it that you own them and the people who pick them don't have anything and might not even have enough food to eat? And because you don't pay them, they don't have enough resources to even pay hospital bills that they have to go to because of the insecticides and other kinds of offenses that's committed against them in the fields. I hate capitalism. I hate capitalism because it's based on wage labor. And the whole issue of wage labor is this. Because under capitalism, the one who does the work never gets paid for what is produced. If you work in a factory that's making tables, like the table that's behind me, and if the technology is such, and they're so efficient, that they can make a table, one individual might make a table an hour. But if that table is sold for $30, and the person who made the table is only making $10 for each table, something is wrong here. How is it then I make the table, I made the damn table, I get $10, you sell the table and get $30, what happened to that $20 is the question. This is the wage, this is the role that wage labor plays in this relationship, because one does not get paid for what they produce in the capitalist system. One gets paid for the ability to produce, if you're lucky and if you're white. And by that, what I mean is that they pay you enough if you're white. They pay you enough to reproduce your ability to work for food, to rent where you're going to stay, have clothing, a six-pack, and every now and then to go to the movies or something like that. That's what it's for. So you get that much and then prepare to go back to work again, making money for somebody else, making profit for somebody else. I say if you're white. And the reason I say that is because most of the rest of us do not even earn enough to reproduce our ability to work, which is why you see this great gulf in the lifespans of Africans, Mexicans compared to white people, which is why you see among African, as when you look at the African community, Africans earning only 65 cents to the dollar that a white person earns. Or this huge wealth gap where white people, white families have 22 times the wealth of African families. How the hell does that work? Because if what they say is true, that work hard and you can be anything, well, Africans ought to be everything, because nobody has worked as hard as we have and have nothing to show for it. But it is the nature of capitalism. It's the capitalist system. But the other feature of capitalism that's not recognized, and this is what you and I have to be clear on, is that capitalism, all the capitalism that we're talking about, rests upon a foundation of parasitism. Because capitalism got started, what Karl Marx called it primitive accumulation, the start of capitalism, the thing that put it all into motion was slavery and colonialism. This is what created the whole system. And the only way that you can overturn the system is to root it out at its base, which is among the enslaved and colonized people. That Marx was dead wrong when he said that the way capitalism would be destroyed is by the industrial working class overthrowing the industrial ruling class. Because he also said that the whole capitalist thing rests upon a pedestal of slavery, pure and simple. If you want to get rid of capitalism, then you've got to get rid of the pedestal, which is the enslaved and colonized people around the world. That's the only way forward. That's the only way forward. So now, we're looking at a world in serious crisis. And the reason the world is in crisis is because the pedestal is being removed. It's because the parasite is being deprived of what it needs for its existence. And guess what? If you have a system based on parasitism, you cannot convince the parasite to leave you. A parasite hangs on to you because if it leaves you, it will die. So if it were possible to have a vote, you couldn't vote the parasite out of you. The parasite won't leave you because of a vote. It's like committing suicide. You don't have enough civil rights songs that you can sing to make the parasite leave you. You can't pray the parasite out of you. The parasite leaves, it dies. That's what all that reform stuff is all about. Trying to make the parasite treat the parasite a certain way and maybe it'll treat us better. It can't. It can't. It just can't. So the whole world is up in arms to overturn a rotten, filthy social system. And most of us are becoming clear that there's a connection to our oppression and capitalism itself. And you and I are becoming clear that you can't get rid of capitalism unless you get rid of colonialism and slavery, because that's its foundation. And it doesn't matter that some white kids have lost their student loans, or old white people have lost their retirement funds. That does not make them part of the 99%. The world that we live in right now, this world, half the people on earth today try to exist off $3, less than $3 a day. 80% of the people in the world today are trying to exist off $10 or less dollars a day. That's 80% of the people. How the hell does a college kid in San Diego become one of the 99%, looking at that reality that the world is confronted with? At best, You are part of the 20%. And yes, there is a 1%. There is a 1%, but you are not part of the 99%. You weren't a part of the 99% before you lost your student loan. You weren't a part of the 99% when they were drawing borders and snatching la migra into our communities. You weren't part of the 99% when we were being gunned down by the police or any of that. So now you become a part of the 99%, and we want you to join the movement, damn it. But you got to move away from this assumption that 80% of the people in the world are going to stop doing what they have to do to free ourselves in order to get you a student loan back. And that's what they would have us do. And so we are involved in growing a movement, joining this trajectory that is taking root in the whole world. It doesn't necessarily become revolutionary consciousness that guides the people around the world in various places throughout the Middle East where we're looking. But what it is an anti-imperialist consciousness. They have decided that white folks ain't gonna leave. They ain't gonna do this to us no more. It became untenable. George W. Bush saw this crisis, and the people who he represents saw the crisis. And their decision was to try to shoot the people back into submission. They were going to gun them down. They were going to take over. You saw the picture of Bush on that carrier with his pilot helmet on his arm, legs akimbo, right? Having been brought there by somebody else for a photo op. Mission accomplished. Do you remember that? Some of you are too young even to remember that. But what happened, of course, is that the people in Iraq had a whole different view on that. People everywhere are struggling against that. And so what happened is became necessary. When they saw they couldn't shoot the people in submission, they invented a way to try to seduce the people into submission. And so now they come up with this character out of nowhere. Has no commitment, no history at all. He's a blank slate, as he has described himself. Barack Hussein Obama, somebody who looks just like the oppressed. And he becomes the new face of imperialism. And he is the tool that they want to use to try to seduce the people. Y'all remember when he went to Cairo and stood up in Cairo and said, Assalamu alaikum. Somebody might have mistaken him for Farrakhan or somebody with that kind of language. And it worked for about 30 seconds. And people all around the world are becoming clear that imperialism is imperialism. It doesn't make any difference about the complexion of the person that's representing this horrible institution that dominates the rest of the world. I hope nobody has a problem with me criticizing Obama. I heard somebody saying something about, well, we're afraid that he's going to get assassinated. Hell, Obama is the assassin. He is the assassin. He is the assassin. He is the assassin. And so imperialism is imperialism. And we have to join this trajectory, and we have also another kind of obligation and possibility of giving revolutionary consciousness to this whole thing that's happening everywhere around the world. But we ourselves must come into political life. We ourselves must come into organization, because we are nothing as individuals, nothing but dead meat. And people who fear organization, I'm afraid to join because if I join, the police might do this and that. Trayvon Martin wasn't in an organization. Oscar Grant wasn't in any kind of organization. The 107-year-old African man in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, who the police gunned down in his room, wasn't in an organization. The 8-year-old child that was shot in the face in Dallas, Texas by a white man who just shot him in the mouth wasn't in an organization. The African in Charlotte, North Carolina, who got in a car accident and went and knocked on this white woman's house door to say help, and she calls the police, and he also runs to the police saying help, and shot at him 15 times, hitting him 12 times. He wasn't in an organization. You don't have to be in an organization for imperialism to attack you. All you got to do is be colonized. You live under assault 24 hours a day, and the best chance you got is organization. You don't have a chance without organization. So we're calling on you to join. Join the revolution. Join the rest of the world that's involved in a struggle to overturn this relationship we have with imperialism. Join the rest of the world who refuse to accept the narrative that has been created for this reality by our oppressors. We know who the enemy is. We know who we are. We are re-achieving confidence in our own ability to rule and govern ourselves. We don't need white power, either directly or indirectly, trying to dominate our lives. Come into organization. And I want to say that I have problems with people who are reluctant to come into organization. There's no reason not to come into organization unless you're on the other side. You have to consider coming into organization. And I hope that the people who are here will help us to develop the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement. NPDOM in San Diego is new. When I say new, I mean we've been around for a few years, but we're inexperienced. This turf is one in particular that Union de Barrio has been on, has explored, has defined, has helped to shape politically for a number of years. We need your help and unity with what it is we're trying to do. We've expressed it 1,000 times. We need Africans to join the revolution, join this movement, join this organization, so that we can put on the ground what we need to free ourselves, so that we can be sure that our families and children will have a future, not because a good Negro gets elected to office, but because we have possession of our future in our own hands. We have to assume responsibility to lead. We have to disregard how we have been defined in terms of being inept, incapable of leading ourselves because we don't have X numbers of degrees. Look at where we are now as a consequence of them Negroes with degrees. How much has that helped us? There's not one of us here who could not do better ruling and governing our own affairs than what we have had those Negroes trying to do for us. So you have a responsibility to do that. I want to tell you that on December 11th through December 7th through 11th, our party is having our 6th Congress. That's been mentioned before. And as a part of the process for this Congress, we've created a political report that I'm responsible for delivering at every Congress. And it's up online. You should get that political report. It's almost 300 pages long. It's a long political report because it's a whole new era that we're living in. There's been an amazing shift in the balance of forces in the world today. That the oppressed peoples around the world, we are on a trajectory that's shaking up the whole situation of white power. There's been this amazing change, and we have to come to terms and understand that so that we understand what our possibilities are. Otherwise, we have this ability to assume that our abilities are limited to what they were used to be yesterday or 2 months or 3 months or a year ago, when the whole world has changed and it's wide open for us if we would be organized and if we would unite to take advantage of it. So I'm hoping that people here, I know some of you are going to be at our conference in Petersburg, Florida in December. I hope everyone will take advantage of pulling that political report off. Look at it. I want to say that we call ourselves African Internationalists. But what we are folk who are united with a historical materialist worldview that challenges the worldview that's been posed before. Any theory that we have, if it was just a theory about black people, it wouldn't be useless toilet paper, because Africans do not exist in the whole trek that we're involved in to try to take at least our understanding of this reality that we're confronted with and try to win people to organization to support for the Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. Salute Union de Barrio and all of the Mexican warrior.
We're not where your money is gonna go when you do support us. And we're gonna make sure that once you see this PowerPoint, you will be inspired to give a donation tonight. So we're about to pull this PowerPoint presentation on the Uhuru movement up, so you can see that the work that the Uhuru movement is doing is international, and it's on several continents in the world, and every dollar that you're going to is going to these works. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do a couple of chants right now. And we're gonna go ahead and start with the first chant with, Wendy's gonna lead us in a chant, and then I'll go ahead and do a chant.
We always like to do chants in our movement because it gets us motivated, especially right now, because we are gonna show you all the programs and things that the Uhuru movement is doing. So our first chant is, I'm gonna say reparations, and you're gonna say now. Reparations! Yeah. Reparations! Yeah. Uhuru. And Jocelyn's going to lead another chant, but we need to get a little bit louder.
When I say Africa, you say one nation. One Africa. One nation. One Africa. One Africa. One Africa. Uhuru.
One nation.
Uhuru.
One nation.
One Africa. One Africa. Okay. Let's get into this PowerPoint presentation. You wanna... All
right. So, we're going to show you what's going on in the Uhuru movement. So, the Uhuru movement is uniting Africans worldwide, and they're building for economic reliance, political self-reliance, and this slide release people from around the world. This is in Europe, and this is not only in the United States. We are seeking justice for every African throughout the world, in Haiti, in Germany, where Uri Jallo was killed by the police, spearheading around Rio. In fact, this happened in about a year under the leadership of APDEP. A nursing school was built, a vocational school was built, a school for children was built, and several farms were cultivated. And one of the most important things, and this work is being led by Nurse Mary Karoma, 1 in 7 women in Sierra Leone die in childbirth. And through the work of APDEP, this statistic is being completely overturned. And the children are healthy, the mothers are healthy, and everybody's working together for their own self-determination. And they're doing things in 1 year that a typical NGO can't even accomplish in 20 years. The other part of the Uhuru movement that's very significant, Uhuru Foods and Pies. This is a long-standing institution of the Uhuru movement, and in programs and campaigns around Trayvon Martin, overturning the culture of rape and violence, justice for Lynn Stewart, and getting the U.S. out of Syria. These are all the kinds of programs that the Uhuru movement is spearheading. And these are just the faces of the Uhuru movement and Uhuru Solidarity members. So this is what your money's going to. This is what our programs are about, and this is why we know and we're confident that tonight that we can raise money. This is part of our Days of Solidarity with African People, which is done by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and we're raising reparations. Throughout the year we raise reparations, but particularly in this campaign and here in San Diego, we're raising reparations. And so we have certain goals that we're going to meet in terms of raising reparations. And this is what you can be a part of as we do this fundraising appeal with you. Uhuru.
So tonight you've heard about the strategy of the African People's Socialist Party. You've heard about the work being done throughout the world. You've seen that the Uhuru movement is doing work on the ground, and here in San Diego, our goal is to build branches of Impeda and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in San Diego.
And this is, you know, this is a solution for us white people as well, because what we do as white people in oppressing the rest of the world, it affects us too. So we know that our solution as white people is being a part of this movement and being solidarity members so that African revolution can be achieved. And we really want to kick out that pedestal of white power, and we want to join the rest of humanity. So this is what Uhuru Solidarity is all about in terms of the Days of Solidarity campaign that we're doing. And so fundraising, we know that the ability to give money is really a personal thing, and that we all have our own limit to what we can do, but we want to really push the comfort zone tonight. We want to raise $1,000 tonight, and we know that we can do that. And it's particularly for us white people in this community, we hold 22 times the assets and wealth of Africans. So it's imperative that us as whites, that we do this campaign, the Days of Solidarity with African People,